My mother-in-law's quiet revenge against her cheating, lying son. Last year, everything in my life turned upside down. I was married, living what I thought was a stable life, raising our autistic daughter, and preparing for a big shift, welcoming my in-laws into our home. Their house was going into foreclosure for reasons that are a story in themselves, and my father-in-law had just been diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, a fatal illness that gave him only a few years to live. There was never a question of whether they'd move in with us. We wanted them here, close and cared for. Then came the shock I didn't see coming. Just 2 months before my in-laws were set to move in, I found out my husband was cheating on me. I was devastated. The betrayal cut deep, but even then, I told his parents they were still welcome. My husband's actions were his alone, and I had no intention of punishing two people who had always treated me with love and respect. My in-laws were more supportive than I ever could have imagined. They stood by me, clearly disappointed in their son. They didn't start fights, didn't make things harder. They just quietly shifted their loyalty. They were civil to him, but you could see the distance. My husband, despite everything, still lives here. His name is on the deed, and because of our daughter's needs, we've had to maintain stability during the transition. It's not ideal, but she comes first. He refuses to leave anyway, mainly because he has nowhere else to go. Turns out his mistress isn't interested in playing house. But the moment that really turned things for my mother-in-law came over something as small as $20. One Tuesday, my husband asked her for money to get gas. She handed it over without hesitation. But over the next few days, the car didn't move and the gas gauge never budged. That Thursday, I mentioned it offhandedly to her. That's when we both realized he'd lied. He'd used the money not for gas, but for a full day out with his mistress. That lie hit her harder than I expected. Something about it, maybe the casualness of the deception, maybe the fact that he used her generosity to fund his cheating, snapped a quiet switch in her. From that point forward, she stopped tiptoeing around him. It started in the kitchen. For 15 years, I'd cooked meals that catered entirely to his picky preferences. No spice, no sauces, no unfamiliar ingredients. Now, with my mother-in-law beside me, we made whatever we wanted. Foods he wouldn't touch. Dishes full of garlic and onion, herbs and flavor, vegetables he pretended made him sick. We cooked for ourselves, for the joy of it, and completely ignored his tastes. He would wander in, sniff the air, and immediately look disappointed. He'd ask what was for dinner, and we'd casually tell him, knowing full well he'd refuse to eat it. He'd either sulk in his room or drive off for fast food, spending even more of his dwindling money on junk. It became our private joke, a quiet rebellion. We never yelled, never confronted him. We just slowly removed his place from the home, and that was only part of it. Everything he'd once taken for granted was slipping away. The comfortable dinners, the sense of being cared for, even the passive support of his family. His mother, who once would have done anything for him, now looked at him with disappointment she didn't bother to hide. He was surrounded by people who no longer saw him as the center of anything. I don't care much about petty revenge anymore. I'm tired, I'm moving on. But my mother-in-law, she's still riding that wave, and honestly, I love her for it. She gets a certain sparkle in her eye when he asks if there's anything for dinner, and she shrugs and says, "No, we didn't think you'd want any. Since everything fell apart, I've poured my energy into myself. I've lost 60 pounds, and I'm still going. I feel strong, confident, and more in control of my life than I've felt in years."